Hello, everyone. Today I like to talk about Iraq, and I know that uh, some Americans want to know what's happening there. But right now I will just read from a report done by Associated Press from Baghdad and was published on San Diego Union Tribune. I believe today, December the 29th. Yeah, the report states that Iraq 490 protesters killed since October, and I would comment on this title for the news. This piece of news. I think that actually the casualties or the victims are a higher number. I believe it's maybe over 550, something like that, right now. But anyway, that's what the report of Associated Press says. So Iraq's semi-official Human Rights Commission said Saturday at least 490 protesters have been killed in Baghdad and southern cities in nearly 3 months of anti-government rallies. And why I doubt about this number is that this agency or this commission is a government-based institution, and that's why it's not trusted, because it is the government that manages this institution and controls it, and it's the same government that conduct the murders and the killings of human rights activists and political activists in the Iraqi society. The report continues, Iraq since October 1st has been roiled by protests in which demonstrators have taken to the streets to decry corruption, poor services, and a lack of jobs. They have also called for an end to the political system imposed after the 2003 US-led invasion. The mass uprisings promoted the resignation of former Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi. Late last month, the protesters demand an independent candidate hold the post. The leaderless protests were met with a violent crackdown by security forces. They dispersed crowds with live fire, tear gas, and sonic bombs, leading to fatalities. Faisal Abdullah, a former member of the semi-official Human Rights Commission, said the 490 killed include 33 activists assassinated in targeted killings. More than 22,000 have been injured. Abdullah said 56 protesters remain missing after reports they were abducted. Another 12 have been released, he said, quoting data recorded by his group. The Iraq government and a committee looking into abduction linked to the country's interior ministry. The Human Rights Commission doesn't assign blame for the violence. The United Nations has said it received credible allegations of deliberate killings, abductions, and arbitrary detentions carried out by unknown armed men described as militia, unknown third parties, and armed entities. Well, I'd like to comment on this by saying that the situation in Iraq is very important. Um, Even on the geopolitical, it's very important because Iraq is like Iraq has been always a path for invasions, conquerors, waves of um, immigrants all over history. So that's why Iraq has a dangerous position. So if Iraq goes down, the whole region, I believe, will go into chaos. And we remember how when ISIS was able to get control over like big parts of Iraq, it was able to go through many other countries at the same time. So it's very important for the U.S. to keep control or control the situation in Iraq, especially with this Iranian involvement in Iraq. They are trying very hard to drive Americans out of the country. And if the American government, led by Donald Trump, decided to leave Iraq, that would be a catastrophic decision because it's far more dangerous than Syria, because Syria, remember, is not as important as Iraq, because Syria is poor, it's already destroyed, and also it's not close to the rich fields of oil and the strategic Persian Gulf. But Iraq has all this importance on that side. So another important thing happened in Iraq today, and it was a breaking news today morning here in San Diego, California, that is that the U.S. has bombed the main headquarters of Iraqi Hezbollah, which is a militia belongs to Iran, the Iranian regime, supported by Iranian regime. And I believe this comes as a response to what happened a few days ago when some shells fell on, or bombs actually, rockets. Some rockets were launched against an American base in Kirkuk in northern Iraq, and an American contractor unfortunately was dead because of that. So I think this comes as a response to that. I think this showing us that things are going into escalation in Iraq, and the Iranian regime seems determined to go and escalate further because they are suffering from the American economic sanctions on Iran, which I think was a good thing somehow. I know that the Iranian people are suffering because of that. It's mostly people who have nothing to do with the regime's policies. But I think the U.S. also should go and sanction the Iranian officials. I want to see my country, the United States. I want them to hurt the regime rather than hurting the people, because I remember when America sanctioned Iraq after Saddam's invasion of Kuwait, the small country, into the southern side of Iraq. The United Nations, led by the U.S., sanctioned Iraq. They put some economic sanctions. And what happened is that we as people suffered. I remember that we almost went to famine and hunger. Yeah, it was a very difficult time, like 3-4 years before Saddam backed up and decided to exchange oil for food and medicine. And that also was another disastrous decision, because it enabled Saddam to corrupt the United Nations itself. Anyway, it seems that this American bombing of Hezbollah headquarters killed some of the party members, Hezbollah party, and injured others. And on another side, I am hearing some news from Iraqi agencies that the Iraqi militias that are backed by Iran, they are still conducting assassinations and torture against those who oppose them. And I am afraid that the country might end up in violence if these militias continue doing these criminal activities. So I hope to see America do something more about it, and to be more serious against the Iraqi government, which is controlled by Iran. The U.S. should know that the whole system is corrupted in Iraq, because those people who came to power came through cheating and like unhonest elections, and especially the new generation is now aware of the Iraqi identity as a nation, as a separate nation from all the neighboring countries and sects, or like sectarian membership or ethnicity, and so on. Yeah, that's also an important thing we should know today. And I like to talk about a short biography published by San Diego Union Tribune, published today, December the 29th, about an Iraqi guy named Wadi Dede. Died, he's 98 years old. And it said that an Iraqi American who understood the history, culture, and government of his native country and his adopted one. He served 16 years in the Assembly and 11 in the State Senate. The moderate Democratic earned a reputation for bipartisanship that seems almost quaint in today's polarized political climate. The word compromise needs not to be offensive to people. The South Bay resident once said, "This is what civilized people do." Born in Baghdad, Dede grew up in Chaldean family with a passion for politics. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1947. He came to California to teach Arabic at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, where he met his future wife, Mary Lynn. They moved to South Bay and both got teaching jobs. His was at Sweetwater High School, and several years later he joined the political science faculty at Southwestern College in Chula Vista when an assembly seat opened in 1966. He joined the race and won by 1,000 votes, becoming one of the first Iraqi Americans elected to public office in the country. He had a particular interest in transportation, and in 1972 authored legislation creating the California Department of Transportation. Those efforts earned him a label as the father of Caltrans. So rest in peace, man. Rest in peace. In 2006, same day like today, word reached the United States of the execution of former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein. That's what the San Diego Union Tribune says. But I would prefer call him dictator, okay? Because of the time difference, it was the morning of December 30 in Iraq when the hanging took place. In a statement, President George W. Bush called Saddam's execution an important milestone on Iraq's road to democracy. Well, that was true. I mean, the Iraqi people had no choice but to hang the guy, because just like King Louis of France, except that I don't want to compare Saddam to King Louis as a person, because King Louis was a very poor guy, like as an individual. But the situation in Iraq was the same. But so Iraqis had no choice but to hang him after a trial, of course, that took. It was long by Iraqi standards, even by Saddam's own standards. So, because he was encouraging insurgency and violence, not just against the U.S. forces, but against the Iraqis who were involved in policing and working with the new government and the new system. So Iraq had no choice but to hang him. So it was good. Yeah, I know some people will disagree, but I would say I think you are wrong, because the guy was violent, bloody, and thirsty for violence. So he deserved, and he got what he deserved. Please support us. Like our videos. Check out our podcast on anchor.fm, and we have other outlets where we publish our podcasts, like Google Podcasts and iTunes. Check out Apple website too. So I hope you like our videos and support us. Thank you.